The year the sun vanished. An introduction. In 536 AD, the world was plunged into a strange dimness. Imagine a sun that barely shone, casting weak shadows like whispers. A year so cold that summer fields saw snow, and the air held an unseasonal bite. Farmers across the globe helplessly watched their crops wither, and hunger became a constant, unwelcome guest. People frantically scavenged for anything, bark, weeds, to fill their bellies. Empires stumbled, dreams of conquest faded, and hushed stories of a lurking plague circulated by firesides. The question echoed through time: could this truly be the end of the world? Picture a world where the sun's warm embrace was absent, replaced by an eerie, cold gloom. Welcome to 536 AD, a year when the sun mysteriously vanished, leaving humanity to ponder whether it was an act of wrath or whim. Historians and scientists have since delved into the past to understand this pivotal year when the sun ceased to be a predictable source of warmth. This was no minor event. It profoundly reshaped medieval life, casting deep shadows on the human experience. A pale sun and a chilling twilight. In 536, the once bright sun resembled a pale moon. Across regions as diverse as the Roman Empire and the shores of Scandinavia, people recorded this unsettling phenomenon. The sun's light was halved, bathing the earth in a chilling twilight that offered little comfort. Rivers remained frozen, fields lay bare under a frosty veil, and crops failed to grow. Communities dependent on the season's rhythm found themselves in a perpetual struggle, as if trapped in a mythical tale where celestial beings had turned their backs on humanity. Eyewitness accounts from Byzantium convey a mix of confusion and fear. The historian Procopius noted the sun's faint presence, as if in a prolonged eclipse. Throughout the world, scribes and chroniclers documented the widespread anxiety, which fueled folklore filled with dark omens and angry gods. Climatic chaos and societal upheaval. The sun's bizarre behavior was attributed to cosmic mishaps, leading to whispered theories of divine punishment or cosmic indifference. The lack of sunlight had a ripple effect on the physical world. The usual harbingers of spring, melting snow and warming breezes, were conspicuously absent. Snow persisted stubbornly, withholding the life and warmth that should have arrived with the season. Rivers remained frozen, refusing to flow. The cycles of planting and harvesting were thrown into disarray, causing disaster for agrarian societies reliant on nature's consistency. This climatic disruption triggered social upheaval as communities faced dwindling resources with no clear path forward. Societal reactions to these inexplicable changes varied widely in their intensity. In such uncertain times, people sought comfort wherever they could, often turning to supernatural explanations to make sense of an unpredictable world. Adapting to the darkness. Society's response. Across Europe and Asia, soothsayers and mystics were consulted for insights from hidden knowledge. Kings commissioned religious monuments. Candlemakers profited from the demand for light during endless nights, and villagers kept vigils. The sun's disappearance blurred religious boundaries, blending ancient pagan rites with emerging Christian rituals, creating a diverse tapestry of faith across continents. This dark period also revealed a stark societal divide. The nobility, with their stored grains and insulated lives, initially fared better, although their wealth diminished under the strain of unproductive land. Peasants, driven by a primal will to survive, formed stronger community bonds and shared scarce resources. Each day demanded navigating the delicate balance between cooperation and survival instincts fueled by scarcity. Echoes in folklore and the spark of defiance. The ominous atmosphere of this era became embedded in folklore, echoing the unprecedented events of 536 AD through generations. In the north, Norse tales of Fimbul Winter, a prelude to Ragnarok, drew upon these harsh conditions. Legends of endless winters and futile searches for warmth emerged, crafting sagas that inspired the resilience of future generations. Medieval narratives from this time often portrayed this dark episode as morality tales exploring human folly and futility. Despite the pervasive gloom, humanity held on to a spark of defiance. Farmers adopted innovative techniques to coax life from the stubborn earth, and communities maintained vital alliances through bartering and shared knowledge. Music, art, and storytelling provided both solace and healing, combating despair with an indomitable spirit of endurance and hope. As the sun gradually regained its place in the sky, it revealed a transformed world, a legacy of resilience. The catastrophe of 536 was more than just a natural disaster. It was a harsh crucible of adaptation and resilience. Humanity's tenacity left a lasting mark, reflected in stories that would resonate for generations, fostering a deeper understanding of how to navigate periods of adversity. This year, when the sun deviated from its celestial duties, forged a narrative not only of darkness, but of the relentless human drive to survive and renew. Throughout it all, the lessons of endurance and adaptability continued to permeate folklore, ensuring that the past's shadows would illuminate the way forward. In 536 AD, under a sunless sky, fear crept across the land like an unwelcome guest. Fields, once golden oceans of grain, became brittle wastelands. Spring felt like a forgotten memory as winter's icy grip tightened. Hunger didn't need an invitation. It stormed in and took up residence in every home. Communities braced for what felt like an endless winter of hunger and loss. The relentless grip of hunger. Daily life withered under this relentless hunger. Families faced empty pantries and barren fields. Those whose livelihoods depended on the earth's bounty turned desperately to the forest, scavenging for roots and plants that offered a mere whisper of sustenance. Hunger became a constant presence at every meal, and children, once symbols of joy, now bore the hollow look of starvation. Villages and towns echoed with desperate whispers as people teetered on the edge, stretching scarce resources to their limits. In a world defined by scarcity, foraging became the grim necessity of survival. Bark, lichens, and mosses, once overlooked, became somber substitutes for food. People roamed the woodlands, their eyes scanning for anything that might fill the void. Desperation transformed weeds into precious greens, and survival depended on the delicate balance between edible and poisonous. Knowledge was shared and mistakes became harsh lessons. The cracks in morality, desperation, and taboo. As animals fiercely competed for remaining food, hunting became a dangerous pursuit, weaving necessity into the tapestry of survival. When desperation reached its breaking point, the walls of morality crumbled. Starvation doesn't whisper, it screams. Historical accounts offer a muted testament to unthinkable acts. Cannibalism emerged from the shadows, a grim reality of flesh consumed, human or otherwise. Families confronting the hollow gaze of their loved ones faced choices that stripped away layers of humanity, revealing the fierce will to survive even as dignity shattered under the weight of desperation. Urban and rural areas showed the strain on society. Cities reeled under panic as once thriving markets lay silent and deserted. Queuing for bread became a futile exercise in hope. Rationing became a tightrope walk, balancing a recalibrated abundance for scarcity. Urban desolation versus rural ingenuity. Meanwhile, life in rural areas adapted differently. Villages connected to the soil felt every betrayal of the seasons. Bartering resurfaced like a relic of the past, creating self-sufficient communities where cooperation became a form of currency. Urban desolation was countered by rural ingenuity, fostering resilience in fields and fellowship. Famine's impact extended beyond empty bellies, reshaping the core of society. Customary practices warped under hunger's pressure, whispers of pagan rites mingling with Christian stoicism. Devoid of certainty, piety evolved into a lifeline, a hopeful weapon against consequences. Superstitions blossomed in the calamity, lending structure to the inexplicable with dark tales and ominous prophecies. Rituals adapted, transformed into desperate pleas for divine intervention. Society's spiritual fabric frayed, torn between prayer and silence as hunger fueled the desperate rise of superstition.
Глава 8. Манускрипт Войнича. Среди всех таинственных текстов, дошедших до нас из глубины веков, манускрипт Войнича занимает особое место. Это иллюстрированная рукопись, датируемая по результатам радиоуглеродного анализа началом XV века, написана на совершенно неизвестном языке с использованием уникального алфавита. который до сих пор не поддается расшифровке. Сотни страниц пергамента заполнены не только загадочным текстом, но и причудливыми иллюстрациями несуществующих растений, астрономических и космологических диаграмм, а также изображениями обнаженных женских фигур в странных бассейнах, соединенных трубами. Кто был автором этого манускрипта? На каком языке он написан? Какую информацию он содержит? Эти вопросы остаются без ответа на протяжении столетий, несмотря на усилия лучших криптографов, лингвистов и историков. Существует множество теорий о природе и содержании манускрипта Войнича. Шифр. Возможно, это зашифрованный текст на одном из известных европейских языков, но ключ к шифру утерян. Искусственный язык. Манускрипт мог быть написан на специально созданном искусственном языке, подобно эсперанто, но с гораздо более сложной структурой. Древний утерянный язык – это может быть единственный сохранившийся образец некоего древнего языка, не имеющего известных аналогов. Мистификация или розыгрыш. Некоторые считают, что манускрипт – это искусственная мистификация, созданная в средние века или позже, не имеющая никакого реального смысла, а предназначенная для введения в заблуждение или продажи коллекционерам. Алхимический или медицинский трактат. Судя по иллюстрациям, это мог быть травник. Фармакопея – алхимический или астрологический трактат, содержащий тайные знания. Послание инопланетян или из другого измерения. Самые смелые теории предполагают, что манускрипт имеет внеземное происхождение или является посланием из параллельного мира.
Fracture and fortitude. The impact on society. Rural isolation offered some respite, yet tales of new diseases traveled as quickly as the weary. Famine primed society for the embrace of plague, where weakness was exposed and disease held the scalpel. Famine's perverse duality fractured and mended societies. Selfish desperation sowed seeds of discord, crumbling once strong and reliable networks. Hoarding and suspicion infected close-knit communities. Hunger's grip testing relationships, pitting kin against kin in the struggle for a meager meal. Yet amidst division, resilience born of necessity took root. Shared suffering fostered unity. Communities drew tighter. Impromptu collectives formed, and survival became a collective endeavor. New alliances emerged, presenting a united front against the relentless onslaught of hunger. Children bore the deepest mark, with hunger inscribed in their early memories. Starvation's lessons were harsh, shaping resilience and reshaping the future's guardians. Creativity amid scarcity and the unyielding spirit. Despite the weight of famine, creativity sparked hope amid scarcity. Play became a battle of wit, where innovation built a bridge to brighter days. Children carried the stories of hunger, balancing the past and future, forging perseverance from famine's grip as they became the promising flicker of what lay ahead. In famine's darkest hour, human resilience stood as a defiant beacon. Under ash-blue skies and barren lands, evolution persevered against collapse, writing history with tales of survival. From rebellion to unity, hunger to sustenance, adversity led to transformation beyond material gain. Famines may empty lands, but they fill history with the indomitable narratives of human survival, teaching adaptation where civilization falters, sustaining tales of necessity's muse amidst shadows. Resilience danced, reminding us of an unwavering human spirit, crumbling empires under a sunless sky. In the dim light of 536, empires once considered unshakable began to crumble under the weight of a sunless sky. The Byzantine Empire, vast under Justinian, was not immune to nature's fury. The dimming sunlight brought not just cold, but unease. Communication faltered, resource distribution broke down, and plans for military campaigns began to unravel. The essence of order faded, leaving leaders struggling with systems that seemed to disintegrate. Trade routes became veins of despair, where goods and news traveled slowly, stifling hope. Faith wore thin as each failed harvest tested the emperor's resolve, stripping away his ambitions as whispers of divine wrath grew louder. Justinian's dreams of restoring the Roman Empire's glory flickered in the dim skies. The forces needed to reclaim the Western territories were scattered, reliant on precise logistics and abundant resources. Justinian's ambitions dimmed, yet nature twisted these plans, repainting the empire's map with famine and strife. Soldiers faced hunger before battle, and every skirmish with tribes like the Goths became a grinding struggle. In Constantinople, dissent simmered as ministers doubted the feasibility of grand military adventures amidst the empire's spiraling scarcity. Hearts once bolstered by victories in North Africa and elsewhere now faced the daunting challenge of mere survival. As each shortage unraveled the ties that bound Justinian's empire eastward, China's Northern Wei dynasty echoed these struggles. Farms lay low under a once generous sky turned merciless. Confucian order crumbled from the roots as peasant hunger grew and coffers emptied, leaving edicts ignored and lost in howling winds. Heavy levies and conscriptions fueled the fires of rebellion, and the nobility vying for dominance found themselves navigating shifting sands of power. China's fractured dynasty. The dynasty fractured into the 6 dynasties, each competing in a theater of survival, ideologies jostling under nature's brutal hand. Faiths outside Confucianism, like Buddhism and Taoism, offered solace where traditional beliefs faltered, reshaping the landscape in their wake. Across the seas, Ireland's history recorded these darkened years, capturing tales of survival in a landscape teetering on the edge. Chronicles deftly wove narratives of a failure of bread, hinting at starvation cloaked in dignity. Songs and stories held the weight of lost harvests and ghostly meadows, breathing life into household whispers around the ever-present hearth. As customs faltered, local chieftains saw their communities disband, sending youth adrift on paths of monastic learning or warriors' journeys. Old tales turned solemn, bards transformed halls into echoes of lost promise. Through this, Ireland found strength in sorrow, weaving enduring melodies of resilience. Ireland's tale of survival. Survival became an art, an intricate dance with nature that forced old traditions to bend and reshape. Wheat surrendered its reign to resilient grains like barley and rye, nurtured in lands cultivated out of necessity. Adaptation wove survival into diversity. Neighbors became kin, sharing sparse resources and forging new communities. Ingenuity thrived amidst adversity as humans refined their existence. Straw-layered roofs conserved warmth, and mundane objects became tools of innovative survival. People learned a new nature, their tutor in survival's harsh curriculum. Though the times resisted change, subtle innovation crept in, whispering hope into the mundane. Emperors and peasants carried new burdens, bound by a shared struggle. Rulers seeking guidance from heavens and earth found power intertwined with vulnerability. The solitude of palaces amplified their isolation, redefining leadership and community, while peasants beneath the same sun sought survival's path as hierarchy crumbled. Hunger merged the powerful and the ordinary, revising ambitions in favor of enduring the present pain. Communities rose from the rubble of the empire's shaken veneer. Old hierarchies were replaced by grassroots leaders. Elders, artisans, and merchants steadied new foundations. In this turmoil, forgotten professions found renewed purpose. Alchemists, architects, and craftsmen answered survival's call, with skills once sidelined becoming central to existence. Tools and trades, once antiquated, became badges of resilience, reimagining healthcare and connecting fragmented commerce. Simple crafts bore the weight of necessity. As merchants revived trade's web across uncertain grounds, a new currency of skill and resilience flowed, crafting a tapestry woven through shared adversity. Amid the fall of grand empires, small communities revealed their resilience. Bonds formed under hardship provided communal strength, seeds of hope in the ashes. Beneficial stories shared by firelight. Tradition and innovation coexisted, creating cohesive societies where food, labor, and law intertwined. Governance flowed from village firesides rather than thrones as local leaders rose to navigate the fractured landscape. Tales of endurance intertwined with folklore, reinvigorating bards and storytellers who sang of survival amidst fallen halls. Within the remains of collapse, new seeds of hope germinated, hidden from the world's gaze. These roots defiantly sprouted forth with whispered assurances. Through prayer, in catacombs and heresies along borders, humanity sketched its renaissance across desolate lands. These efforts brought to light corridors where survival etched a new civilization, guided by the power of belief and the persistence of life. In the ashes of empire, new beginnings slithered through the cracks like green tendrils between stone. The enduring journey of humanity. With the fall of past chapters, fresh sagas began to write themselves within an ever-turning narrative. Commerce budded in reformed pathways. Governors' hearts softened with understanding, and soldiers' strategies, molded by natural adversities, guided a new era. Humanity's story moved forward, no longer confined to fortress walls, but stretched out across community hearths. The narratives of old crumbled, and out of their stones, humanity rose to weave anew the tale of its eternal journey. The year was 541 AD, a time when the world seemed intent on showcasing its darker side, testing humanity at every turn. Just when it seemed life couldn't get grim-mare, a new terror emerged, the Justinian plague, a phantom that crept silently yet relentlessly. It stowed away on the merchant ships of Pelusium, winding its invisible path through vital trade routes, tugging at the fabric of life with an ever-tightening grip. The shadow of the Justinian plague. It whispered its dark promises in city after city along the Mediterranean shores, casting a shadow over entire populations. Rumors of this grim specter quickly spread, igniting an anxiety that crackled in the air, an energy almost palpable in the growing whispers of dread. By the time the people of Constantinople fully comprehended this threat, it was too late. Opulence and cultural convergence characterized this Byzantine jewel, a city where East met West, a proud, bustling hub that would fall under the grim spell of the plague. As vibrant markets and ceremonial gatherings thrived, death slunk through the picturesque streets, soon to turn them into a dance of life and decay. 1 in every 3 inhabitants succumbed, turning statistics into a parade of personal tragedies, children, mothers, fathers claimed by relentless fate. Ironically, even Emperor Justinian himself fell ill but recovered, a testament to human frailty and resilience. Life in the time of plague. Yet the empire's fabric was left tattered, whispers of despair suggesting that perhaps these really were the end of days. Life in the city now moved to the rhythm of fear and grief, each citizen seen as a potential harbinger of death. Once vibrant communal spaces became deserted paths, the only sounds the echoes of cartwheels laden not with goods but with lifeless bodies. In the struggle for survival, people recoiled from each other, wary of touch, scared of the gaze of others, each avoiding what was once taken for granted. Yet the air was thick with the scent of strange concoctions and incense, the people's vain attempts to outwit the invisible enemy. Clerics prayed fervently while oracles and potions promised salvation, though both offered only false hope. The plague laid bare the limits of medieval wisdom. Medicine, a chimera of hopes and misconceptions, struggled with the intricacies of a world yet to understand germs. The limits of medieval medicine. Brass instruments and healing herbs were wielded like talismans against a force beyond comprehension. Bloodletting, a practice believed to balance bodily humors, often exacerbated suffering. Yet in the midst of such trials, seeds of advancing knowledge were unwittingly planted. Some turned to documenting symptoms meticulously, laying the groundwork for future leaps in understanding. Medicine faltered, as much a victim as those it tried to save, yet it persevered, haunted and inspired by this dark chapter. The plague's reach extended beyond the affliction of the body, unraveling the very social fabric of medieval life. Death was a great equalizer, blurring lines between peasantry and nobility, inadvertently reshuffling power dynamics. The sudden dearth of labor saw lords renegotiating with their serfs, concessions grudgingly made amidst the desperation and confusion. As traditional roles flipped, the rigid feudal system teetered, paving the way for change amidst a landscape marred by the stench of decay and the echoes of loss. Social upheaval and shifting power. With power vulnerable to the same fate as the lowliest commoner, fear coalesced with nascent revolution. Meanwhile, religion, society's anchor and mirror, oscillated between comforting balm and source of unrest. Churches overflowed, not with the devout, but with the desperate entreating heaven for a reprieve. Yet faith trembled, challenged by the tolling bell that marked yet another lost soul. Had God turned his back, or was this a test? Questions gripped humanity's collective consciousness, fueling fears that burned alongside the incense meant to purify. Zealots emerged, bodies crisscrossed with self-inflicted scars, grim spectacles in a procession for salvation through pain. Yet even amidst doubt, tales of miraculous endurance wove threads of hope into this dark tapestry, faith adapting as the shadow lengthened. Faced with annihilation, people's creativity sparked flames unseen in this darkness. Creativity and cohesion in crisis. Communities coalesced under pressure, weaving a patchwork of resilience. Families bonded, neighbors became lifelines, and collectiveness redefined survival strategies. Matilda the apothecary, despite dwindling resources, found sustenance through shared supplies, trading remedies for food, the simplest of exchanges now invaluable. On the rural outskirts, villages erected barriers against contagion, quarantines emerging from sheer necessity. Italy even coined the notion of a quarantine, flaring as a beacon of tactical advance through pragmatic observation. Small yet profound measures signaling paths to eventual progress. The story of the Justinian plague is also told through the records it left behind. Chronicles penned by Byzantine annals, capturing the lament of lost value in deserted hamlets. These parchments whisper the era's anguish, but they also hint at resilience. Scribes noting shifts in governance, crafting policies despite the dysfunction, grasping for stability, records of tragedy and transformation. From these records emerge glimpses of both the tragic and the transformative, tales of bureaucratic effort beside the human struggle for survival. The plague's global reach lifted the veil of isolation across continents. Cities from Alexandria to Rome shared miseries whispered through trade routes that now carried stories of dread. Interconnectedness, unwittingly fostered through commerce, spread shadow alongside silk and spice, revealing how fragile and interconnected our fates truly are. Yet these seeded future alliances and priorities paid forward into shifting sands of policy and culture. Preludes to deeper change trickling through the currents of time. When the Justinian plague finally abated, it left a world indelibly changed. Though it wrenched hope from many, it also unwittingly offered insights into endurance and adaptation. The echoes of this ancient ordeal foreshadowed future advancements, revealing humanity's unyielding spirit in the face of calamity. A world indelibly changed. The learnings drawn from a crucible of suffering would seed transformation, proving once again that even in the darkest of times, humanity endures, learns, and eventually thrives. In the shadowy corners of medieval taverns and within the hushed confines of monastic cloisters, whispers circulated of a time when the sun dimmed, casting a ghostly pall over the world. Imagine waking to a sun shrouded in ash, its light no more than a pale reminder of the moon, painting everything it touched in eerie twilight. This was no fleeting eclipse. The darkness lingered, baffling ancient minds and sparking apocalyptic fears. Historians and scientists have long puzzled over this event, piecing together clues from ice cores and age-old chronicles. From Ireland to China, scribes noted the sun's missing warmth, interpreting this celestial anomaly as a harbinger of doom for their delicate societies, unveiling the mystery, science and legend. Though superstitions abounded in 536 AD, modern science unravels a clearer picture of volcanic eruptions, cataclysms capable of shadowing entire civilizations. The gloom of that year would have rendered familiar landscapes alien and filled hearts with an unshakable dread. Ice cores from Greenland and Antarctica reveal sulfur spikes, evidence of volcanic eruptions erupting around this time. Volcanic plumes high in the atmosphere disperse sulfur aerosols, forming a reflective layer that dimmed the sun's glow. By analogy, it was as if the Earth was covered by frosted glass, chilling the air and dousing humanity's hope. Speculation places the source of this devastation thousands of miles away in places like Iceland or Central America, where restless geological features unleashed volcanic fury. Consider an eruption so massive it hurled ash and sulfur skyward, its echoes only silenced by the chilling quiet of snowy summers and barren landscapes. Volcanic fury and a global filter. Such eruptions, rare though they are, have the power to cool the climate dramatically, steering societies toward ruin. Ilopango in Central America is one potential culprit, a volcano possibly linking its wrath to this environmental upheaval. The unleashed volcanoes were akin to thousands of nuclear bombs exploding in succession, their magma chambers releasing not only ash and flow, but an insidious cocktail of chemicals. Once lofted into the stratosphere, these aerosols lingered, casting the planet in a persistent twilight. The fallout across continents was a volcanic winter, slashing crop yields, cooling oceanic currents, and skewing weather patterns. Ecosystems collapsed, creating a domino effect, sapping civilizations dependent on them. Governments faltered, communities splintered, and sheer survival overshadowed cultural niceties. Deciphering the chaos of 536 extends beyond identifying eruptions. It involves understanding the atmospheric alchemy triggering the chill, the chemistry of the chill. When a volcano erupts, sulfur gases rise, interact with water vapor, and form sulfuric acid aerosols. These particles become a global filter, reflecting solar rays into space, plunging temperatures and darkening years. Scientists using climate models approximate temperature drops of up to 2.0 C, wreaking havoc on already fragile agricultural societies hovering on subsistence's edge. Unable to adapt to noxious conditions and shortened growing seasons, crops failed, leading to food shortages and intensifying societal strains. The eruption of Mount Tambora in 1815 provides a modern parallel. It too spawned the year without a summer. Yet 536's convergence of factors, volcanic outbursts, dense populations, and primitive agriculture, created a singularly terrifying ordeal. Across the ancient world, chroniclers recorded their bewilderment, their writings hauntingly clear in hindsight. Byzantine historian Procopius described a sun akin to a shadow offering the warmth of a moonlit night. Chronicles of a darkened world. In China, records recount climate aberrations leading to famine and the trials of farmers against unforgiving lands. Irish annals echo these tales, detailing bread shortages and the wretchedness spreading through Europe. These accounts are time-traveling windows into the experience of darkness, narratives where folklore and scientific fact intermingle. They reveal societies grasping for meaning in chaos, a world unable to wrest control from nature. Beyond scientific value, these records testify to human resilience, capturing the anguish as societies collided with nature's fury. The aftermath of these eruptions bore an apocalyptic visage. The sky grayed, summers lurched into freezing, and the earth turned traitor. Faced with ravaged harvests and barren fields, animals starved first, their deaths presaging human famine. As granaries emptied and community structures caved under survival's weight, thriving villages faded into desolations, bearing witness to an unfolding modern ice age. The collapse of agriculture and societal strain. Agriculture, the backbone of medieval life, collapsed under the oppressive climate's weight. This shift produced food deserts where self-sufficient societies once flourished. The dire reduction in resources catalyzed immense societal consequences. Waves of migration, uprisings, and a reordering of social orders. Nature, as if upending society's chessboard, triggered adaptation versus extinction decisions. Some societies adapted, rerouting dwindling resources and devising survival methods from this dark period forged by nature. The environmental hardships also corroded social fabrics, triggering eroded trust and order. Traditional culture crumbled, fueling intellectual and spiritual disarray. The inability to explain these sudden climate changes drove people toward religious fervor and superstition. Societies attributed the climatic devastations to divine anger, provoking new religious fervor. As the dust literally settled, radical monasticism held sway, adaptation and renewal. As societies emerged from the shadows of 536, they adapted anew. Necessity inspired invention, spurring agricultural and trade developments that marked a reluctant return from the brink. Innovative crop rotations, seed choices, and iron tool usage emerged, restoring agrarian balance. Societies rebuilt local trade networks with salt as valuable as gold and iron as precious as ancient wisdom. History offers lessons from 536 AD, illuminating humanity's tenacity. When nature strikes indiscriminately, adaptability transcends survival instincts, an enduring legacy of evolution. Amidst the unraveling, communities cultivated resilience. From these stories emerged from 536's shadows inherited by future generations, testifying to human adaptability and renewal. History at its bend refuses to break, as the chronicles underscore mankind's defiance of both myth and empirical storm, persisting onward through trial and revival. The sun's betrayal in the rise of superstition. In 536 AD, the sun betrayed its faithful witnesses. Its light grew pale, cloaked in a chilling haze that left the world in shades of gray. This celestial deviation unnerved medieval societies, where each dawn blended into a shadowy twilight, and familiar patterns of day and night vanished. People gazed at the dim sky and felt the icy grip of anxiety tighten around them. The steadfast sun, once a symbol of constancy, had abandoned them, casting doubt on not just nature, but on the divine order and the fundamental progression of time itself. Communities became suspended in a state of uncertainty, as if caught in an eternal dusk. In this sunless world, fear crept in, carving a path for superstition to flourish as nature's trust evaporated. With crops failing and days elongating into indistinct cycles of night, the medieval mind sought solace in ancient omens and prophecies woven into the fabric of daily life. Prophecies and the church's ascent. Prophecies served as psychological anchors, predicting millenarian events that blurred into a haunting reality. These visions often spoke of doom preceding rebirth, offering a strange comfort that suffering could eventually lead to salvation. Such prophecies were less about divination and more about mapping the dark landscape of the times. A peculiar medieval version of anticipating news without reliability. Amidst this chaos, the church rose to prominence, seizing the opportunity to assert itself as both spiritual and civic authority. When the natural world seemed hell-bent on human destruction, clergy, becoming mediators between heaven and earth, provided explanations shaded in divine judgment. The gloomy sun, they claimed, was a mark of sin, a problem to which the church offered a solution in the form of penance and prayer. Communal rituals became lighthouses in the midst of fear, guiding people back to perceived piety and creating an organized anchor in a world of drift. Superstition's resilience in the fraying social fabric. Religious narratives transformed into universal truths, strengthening the ecclesiastical grip and embedding it into the crumbling socio-political infrastructure. Yet as the church tried to instill order, superstition blossomed with equal fervor. The mysterious shadow cast by the sun opened the gates for an intricate weave of charms and incantations. Folk belief surged, their remedies and rituals forming the last bulwark against despair. Amulets to ward off evil and rituals to appease furious deities became commonplace. Healers, often wise women, gained influence, offering a blend of herbal knowledge and ancient lore that rivaled even ecclesiastical power. Despite the church's efforts, these practices lingered, occupying a complex gray area where superstition and divinity coexisted, providing comfort in a shared struggle. As nature and faith seemed at odds with reason, everyday social contracts unraveled. Trust between kin, lord and vassal, merchant and patron, dissolved under the weight of survival, a distortion of time and the power of relics. Nobles plagued by failing estates sometimes abandoned their responsibilities, destabilizing feudal systems. In response, communities renegotiated roles, prioritizing survival over tradition, redefining bonds as necessary. Human interactions soured, and marketplaces, a hub of social and economic activity, became arenas of distrust and exploitation. Society's tapestry frayed, isolating people with only paranoia and the harsh reality of living another day as common threads. The sun's absence also brought a strange distortion of time. Days and nights intertwined in a seamless loop. Sundials became obsolete. Church bells rang in confusion as temporal markers vanished. Time transitioned from linear to a mosaic of events anchored not by the sun's rise and fall, but by occurrences of communal impact, harvests, omens, plagues. Despite the chaos, a new rhythm emerged, one that adjusted to living in the now, dictated more by necessity than by a structured understanding of time's passage in any traditional sense. Ancient myths and new realities. In this uncertain time, relics and holy artifacts gained renewed significance. Objects from sacred origins became conduits to the divine, offering assurance and miracles. They were not just relics but currencies of hope, positioned in monasteries and cathedrals as beacons amidst spiritual and economic vacuums. Pilgrimages to these sanctified items became acts of penance, drawing the desperate who sought cures or absolution. Even as authenticity faltered, the allure of these sacred objects held sway, weaving themselves into the psyche of a beleaguered populace. Beyond the ecclesiastical confines, old myths and pagan narratives found fertile ground. Disillusioned communities revisited ancient rites, resurrecting the legends of Thor, Woden, and Brigid to reclaim perceived agency. These myths intertwined with contemporary belief systems, coexisting awkwardly but resiliently with Christian doctrine. They spoke of cycles of endings and beginnings, offering a juxtaposition to the Church's narratives and providing a thread of continuity through adaptation and resilience. Policing fear and finding footing. Looming fears fostered community policing mechanisms, which trials and public shaming ceremonies, harsh as they were, allowed temporary relief and communal catharsis. These grim proceedings united people in a shared ritual buoyancy, forging crude but substantive societal bonds through mutual distrust. Vigilante justice emerged, and society appointed guardians to maintain order. These figures, precarious yet discreetly necessary, reflected not a return to savagery, but an effort to preserve cohesion in the shadow of upheaval. Thus, ensnared by the sun's silence, society strived to find its footing. Trust had become fragile, demanding reevaluation and adaptation. Yet ironically, this period of darkness became a catalyst for forging enduring relationships, not based on mere survival, but on a redefined collective destiny. The shadows birthed a resilience in humanity, showcasing hope's enduring flicker in the face of obscurity. The silent centuries begin. In an era steeped in despair, realizing one more day gave people glimpses beyond the enveloping night, lighting the way through passageways unknown. In the aftermath of the cataclysm that was 536 AD, the world found itself plunged into a period of staggering silence. Entire villages across Europe and Asia seemed to vanish overnight, swallowed by the encroaching wilderness, or simply erased by the relentless winds of endless, unforgiving winters. The once bustling arteries of trade, alive with the pulse of goods and knowledge, lay dormant and desolate. Echoes of market laughter and firm negotiations were replaced by chilling silences, not just of sound but of memory itself. What once stood as tangible imprints of human endeavor on the landscape slowly faded, swallowed by time's relentless march. Life in those villages that once thrummed with the vibrant pulse of daily existence halted abruptly, a void of written history and cultural memory. Merchants, the seasoned veins through which the lifeblood of empires once flowed, found themselves adrift in a sea of disconnectedness, their goods left to decay in silence. The arteries of commerce and culture shriveled, marking not just the loss of bodies that tilled the earth, but of minds that spun the shared stories of human existence. Memory became like a tale whispered only in fading dreams as humanity stumbled through a deep and unsettling twilight under a sky whose stars felt distant and unseen. As the ages pressed on, writing, that steadfast preserver of continuity, all but ceased. What fragments survived are painstakingly pieced together by scholars today, like shards of a shattered mirror reflecting a fractured past. Centers of intellect and learning withered, their once lively libraries falling silent, akin to a forgotten hearth gone cold. The decline of literacy and the rise of oral tradition, once bustling scrolls and codices, alive with the depth of human thought, dwindled and disappeared, sacrificed to the urgencies of survival over intellectual preservation. The ink surrendered back to the earth, swallowing tales of cultural vibrancy that once flowed boldly across parchment. Scribes who once chronicled the sagas of civilizations left blank pages as their stark testament to the era's silence. Dubbed the Silent Centuries, the absence of recorded history isn't just a void of knowledge, but of cultural identity itself. While a few elites clung stubbornly to their intellectual torches, keeping libraries like hidden treasures, the wider population turned inward. History survived not on paper but through the fragile cadence of oral tradition, echoing through generations as whispers of resilience that somehow defied the crushing weight of silence. The chaos of 536 also heralded a chilling transformation, a late antique Little Ice Age that wrapped Europe in an icy grip. The grip of the Little Ice Age. Frost entangled itself deeply in the soil, refusing to release its hold even as seasons changed. Fields that once promised abundance stood barren, harvested only by the cruel scythe of frostbite. Rivers turned into shimmering winter mirrors, fragmenting communities that had relied on them for nourishment and survival. Cities, their food stores dwindling, engaged daily in a dire dance against a cold that gnawed at bones and spirits alike. Amidst this relentless cold, art and faith endured as humanity's enduring warmth. With towns and villages pinned by nature's icy fist, faith and creativity blossomed in ways even sustenance could not match. Houses of worship transformed into sanctuaries, while art sang out defiantly against the numbing silence. A vibrant testament to spirit over circumstance. Trade, once vibrant corridors of exchange, became eerie silhouettes of a time now past. The dimming of trade and the weight on the soul. The whispers of silks and spices between East and West faded away, leaving behind a spectral world of lost purpose. Traders found paths swallowed by danger, and market hubs shrunken to mere whispers within local bastions of activity. The bustling bazaars dimmed, reflecting not merely the absence of commerce, but the diminishing light of connected human spirit. These dormant centuries weighed heavily not only on the environment and societal structures, but bore heavily upon the very human soul. Communities cut off from the broader tapestry of trade and enrichment adapted through necessity and survival. Labor demanded a relentless toil, while the ghosts of easier days loomed as specters of both memory and aspiration. Desperation pushed tensions to the surface, manifesting in conflict among those driven to the edge by scarcity and isolation. Yet through this hardship, humanity's spirit carried them, strengthening with every strained fiber, each survival a mark of fortitude beyond fatigue. Nature's quiet rebirth and humanity's return. Even so, beneath the layers of frost and silence, nature quietly prepared its rebirth. Dormant seeds lay in wait, promising fresh beginnings once warmth overcame winter's clutch. The encroaching forest suggested nature's slow retraction of human dominance. Beneath its austere restraint, nature suggested untapped potential, permitting hope to take root beneath the frosty expanse. Humanity's eventual reconnection with this rebounding earth signaled the promise of renewed symbiosis, a reminder of resilience against the face of relentless challenge. As the silent centuries began to lift, humanity reasserted its enduring vibrancy upon the world anew. Though fraught and tentative, the new dawn broke from the rekindled steadfastness of human creativity and determination. Agriculture reborn through innovation or rediscovered wisdom once again nourished both community and spirit, a legacy of perseverance. Progress reclaimed neglected soils, and hope flourished with every fledgling step. The return of clear skies marked more than just prediction. It heralded the tangible promise of renewal born from hard-earned resilience. While the silent centuries were never truly silent, beneath their surface lay ripples of astonishing perseverance, heard in solitary hearts and echoed through collective community. The trials faced left a legacy not of fragility, but of remarkable human triumph. These stories of tenacity, innovation, and grace became an undeniable thread weaving through history's arc, guiding humanity into sunlit chapters beyond adversity as harbingers of enduring resilience and collective triumph. The year 536 AD cast a long shadow, one that echoed through the halls of history with a dreadful persistence. It was the year when the sun dimmed, the sky turned ashen, and a global winter set humanity on a path riddled with hardship. The long shadow of 536 AD. Even as the immediate pallor of dark clouds began to lift, the world remained locked in nature's vice-like grip, nursing wounds inflicted by volcanic upheavals. Every corner of society, every farmer's field, every bustling market, felt the weight of this new, unforgiving reality. The sun's eventual return didn't wave a magic wand of relief. Rather, it marked the precarious beginning of a century-long gauntlet against nature's whims. Communities across the continents of Europe, Asia, and the Middle East struggled to rise from the ashes. Memories of those shadowy years were whispered from one generation to the next, embedding themselves in the stories, songs, and stones of every village. Crop cycles were left in disarray, haunting societies with the specter of another barren harvest. The sun, though back, did not always signal bountiful growth. Instead, it served as a constant reminder of nature's unpredictable temper, spurring societies to adapt by necessity, archiving the past lessons in law and legend. The lingering ghost of hunger and innovation. As hunger became a lingering ghost of 536, civilizations danced on the knife's edge of sustainability. Volcanic eruptions had sapped the Earth's fertility, leaving granaries empty and bellies yearning. Communities wrestled with stark choices: migrate or face starvation. This age of scarcity saw ancient farming practices tossed aside in favor of desperate innovation. Ingenuity stirred to life. Crop strategies shifted. Trade routes blossomed with diverse offerings, and novel foods adorned once barren tables. Yet the phantom of famine lingered in the shadows, whispering tales of withered lives and desperate mothers. These trials etched deep changes into agriculture and diet, forever altering how societies sustain themselves. Conflict born of desperation reigned supreme. As resources dwindled, the bonds of kinship frayed under the relentless pressure of survival. Neighbors eyed neighbors with a newfound suspicion. Friendships buckled and tribes clashed over the meager spoils of a blighted land. Conflict in the shifting landscape of power. Territorial skirmishes emerged as communities vied for fertile plots and critical water sources. Leadership became a prize for those who promised security amidst chaos, rallying desperate followers with the allure of order in an otherwise disorderly world. These quarrels over more than mere sustenance shaped new identities and alliances, paving what would become the foundations of future realms. With conflict came disease. Arm in arm with the woes of 536, malnutrition and war bred conditions ripe for the spread of plague, painting towns with the grim hues of despair. The Justinian plague loomed large, slipping through city gates and village doors with unerring regularity. It clawed at the fragile threads of society, turning faith into superstition and law into scapegoats. Quarantine measures, primitive yet earnest, trace their lineage to these years of vulnerability, showcasing an early inkling of contagion's mystery, disease, faith, and folklore. Wizards and healers prescribed cures drawn from realms between faith and folly, and each new outbreak layered new tales onto the expanding tapestry of communal memory. Spirituality and mysticism offered refuge amidst the chaos. When traditional explanations crumbled, people sought solace in the supernatural, weaving comfort from charms and rituals against unseen threats. The church surged in prominence, its holy scriptures providing narratives that both instilled dread and offered reprieve. Folklore brimmed with tales of witchery and celestial messages, deeply entrenching society's need to find meaning amidst the tumult. Prophets and preachers emerged, each with visions that beckoned followers towards salvation or ruin, promising some semblance of control in a world beyond control's grasp. Amidst the whirlwinds of crisis, the preservation of culture stood resilient. Oral traditions unfurled gloriously, with storytellers revered as keepers of history, weaving the fabric of shared ancestry from tales spun amidst flickering firelight. Preservation of culture and the human spirit. Though written records were sparse, they became treasures among the monasteries where dusty manuscripts hid in cramped scriptoriums, cradled by monks with inky fingers. As turmoil churned external affairs, the arts found unlikely sanctuaries, bearing witness and venting the era's sentiment through melancholic ballads and eerie paintings. Within these creative expressions lived both lament and valor, serving as a living testament to enduring human spirit. The ceaseless march of crisis took its toll not only on lands and towns, but on the very souls of their inhabitants. Survival weighed heavily on minds already stretched thin by relentless famine and warfare, leaving behind scars invisible yet profound. Societies evolved under this duress, with once thriving communities now limping along, groping for purpose amidst the yawning dark. Families yoked beneath the burden of uncertainty found their ties both tested and reborn, shifting social orders and the path to renewal. New alliances forged amidst shared sufferings, revealing hope as a fragile ember, flickering stubbornly against fate's chill gusts. The crisis became a crucible for shifting social orders. Power centralized. Clans rallied behind figures promising stability, giving rise to feudal systems that exchanged protection for loyalty in a dance of governance that was both new and essential. The reshuffling blurred the rigid lines of caste, allowing merit to challenge lineage. It rendered the playing field both treacherous and rife with opportunity, marking those who could deftly navigate the political terrain with new roles in a remade society. Commerce and ingenuity, stimulated by hardship, knitted the fabric of survival anew, ensuring that civilization didn't just wither but evolved, its path marked by resilience, ready to blossom into new chapters unforeseen. Adapting to the shadow, ingenuity, and resilience. In the shadows of 536 AD, when the sun seemed to have turned its back on the world, humanity did what it's done best throughout the ages. It adapted. The dim light and plunging temperatures pushed communities to the brink. Yet from this adversity came remarkable ingenuity. Early medieval Europe saw farmers tinkering with what to plant and where, adopting hardy grains like barley and rye. Crop rotation became a game of survival chess. The fields weren't just fields. They were battlegrounds where farmers fought not with swords but with seeds and plowshares. With grit and necessity as teachers, these agricultural warriors laid the groundwork for resilience that would echo through generations. Times of scarcity saw transformation not only in how food was grown, but in the societies that tilled those fields. Villages in their struggle became tightly knit collectives. The dawn of communal granaries meant the silos weren't just filled with grain, community and connection. They were filled with a spirit of shared survival and hope. Across fields and homes, a patchwork of knowledge slowly made its way from hand to hand in an era where communication was painstakingly slow. Yet that slowness allowed the wisdom born of necessity to seep deeply into the culture. Cultural echoes weren't silenced by the chill. They merely found new voices, gathering people together. Oaths and alliances were formed not just within city walls, but through whispered trades and bartered goods. Markets were birthplaces of rumors, but also of essential connections, bustling beacons in otherwise isolated lives. Salt, iron, and other commodities became more than just items, they became lifelines. Barter was both an economic necessity and a unifying dance, with communities learning to lean on each other, exchanging items alongside stories and shared resilience. The monasteries, their cloisters hushed, became sanctuaries of salvaged knowledge, preserving sacred texts alongside classical works. The preservation of knowledge. Monks shuffled between prayer and page, their scriptoriums transforming dark ink into preservation of light. Outside those hallowed walls, agricultural innovations often took root, farming wisdom blossoming beyond monastic boundaries. Gardens weren't just tended, they were small green miracles in a landscape of scarcity. In the smoke-filled warmth of homes, storytelling shed the sharp chill of nights. Oral traditions became the vessels through which ancestral memories flowed, binding those listening into a shared past around flickering fires. Sagas and myths were spun anew, weaving culture with humor and lessons learned. As stories were passed down, they became histories wrapped in the guise of tales, a way to carry the old into the new. Plague might have sought to strip life away, yet within its grim presence lay strange ironies. In the shells of emptied villages, survivors found unexpected opportunities, ironies of the plague and social change. Land left untended whispered promises of new beginnings to those brave enough to till it. The scarcity of labor wrestled leverage into callous hands, granting the living an unprecedented power to reshape the job of laboring on the land. Amid loss, there was the distant hum of social change. Religious faith became an anchor, with churches acting not only as sanctuaries, but as social centers. In a scattered, shaken world, they represented a structured glimpse of order. Monasteries, silent as the snow-capped peaks, held on to written world fragments. Monks, through the littlest of labors, transcribed more than just words onto vellum. They inscribed a future's curriculum and hope. With uncertainty holding sway over the populace's minds, spiritual guidance offered a tether, one that tied both souls and communities together. Amid the echoes of resilience, creativity stirred, the very act of creation becoming an act of rebellion against despair. Creativity as rebellion and a glimpse of hope. Crafts that might have seemed frivolous in a world of want found new meaning. Artisans carved symbols of the sacred and the soulful into clay and stone. Churches and holy sites commissioned stories of biblical trials and saintly salvation, reminding the faithful of higher powers and guiding lights. Lively markets and resurrected fairs brought color in both wares and tales of distant lands, a vivid narrative emerging from drab survival. However, amongst the ironies of a plague-stricken landscape, a curious resilience took root. Where illness ran rampant, opportunities for both growth and mobility arose. The thinning population twirled societal hierarchies on their heads, enabling a subtle shift in power dynamics. The few who survived suddenly found themselves in possession of choices unheard of in generations past. Roles open to those once unseen, with communities leaning on women and men who had stood unbowed by adversity. A story of survival and renewal. Ultimately, humanity emerged with hope, scars, and strength interwoven in its very fabric. Societies bore the legacies of its survivors, a testament to survival. Even when the odds seemed insurmountable, from the dark depths of 536, communities crawled, bringing with them resilience forged in desperation and knitted with cooperation. In this fragile dance between memory and future, the lessons of adaptation ensured that humanity didn't just survive, it thrived. The world watched in awe as history unfolded its tale of persistence and quiet renaissance. In the year 536 AD, the world found itself cast in shadow, a profound dimming that overturned the rhythms of life and left humanity scrambling under a pall of uncertainty. The sun, once a steadfast beacon of warmth and growth, seemed to lose its way, its light reduced to a pale imitation of its former self. Day after day, this ghostly orb hung in the sky, its feeble glow barely more than that of the moon on a clouded night. A world in twilight, the uncanny chill. Ancient scribes, struggling to capture the uncanny chill, described a sun that gave light without brightness. And so an era began, plunging civilizations into turmoil as crops failed under snow-covered summer fields and feared seasons blurred into a perpetual winter. Every living thing felt the impact. The balance of life teetered, a careful dance between nature and nurture, shattered by this unforeseen rebellion of the skies. Fields lay low, grains never reaching storehouses that once brimmed with plenty. The air, crisp and cutting, carried the scent of desperation as communities grappled to reconcile their once reliable world with this newfound betrayal. Across continents, the sheer absence of the sun's warmth sent ripples through an interconnected web of human existence. Civilizations strained under the weight of impending doom, their stability fractured in the face of an unending twilight. From this shadow emerged a test of human perseverance, the crucible of survival and the rise of ingenuity. Survival became an art, a communal endeavor, forcing people to reach deep into the reserves of ingenuity. Creativity, once reserved for leisure, now an essential tool in the fight against starvation. The familiar cycles of farming were abandoned for drastic measures, gnawing on bark, weaving sustenance from whatever nature had spared. Communities tightened, becoming lifelines of shared trial and error, where even the whispers of prayer sounded desperate. In a paradox most stark, the darkness not only forced individuals to the brink, but simultaneously bound them together, a shared endeavor against an indifferent cosmos. Amidst this crucible, the resolve of humanity shone through. As livestock dwindled and fields died, a natural selection of resilience and adaptability unfolded. Villages thought lost to the void faded into landscapes overgrown and silent. Once bustling cities, symbols of collective achievement, became whispers themselves as trade and communication faltered under nature's harsh hand. Whispers in the dust, traces of lost lives. The remnants of these settlements still tell tales of sudden exodus, scattered belongings left behind like silent cries of lives abruptly interrupted. This epoch bore witness to an eerie stasis, recorded delicately in both archaeology and lore, an era unveiled in dust. In the midst of this turmoil, certain voices rose, cutting through the thick silence of despair to capture the essence of their time. Chroniclers emerged as both scribes and witnesses, weaving the turmoil into narratives etched in parchment and memory. These records endure as vivid testaments, providing future generations a window into the lives of those who navigated this dark threshold. From hastily scribbled accounts to crafted narratives, these chronicles weave the tapestry of collective memory, painting a landscape of both loss and resilience. Yet amidst the unwavering faith of many, doubt simmered beneath the surface, seeping into the hearts of even the devout. Faith and doubt under a dim sky. The dimming invoked religious fervor, casting long shadows over faiths across lands. Temples and churches thrived as bastions against chaos, hallowed ground where appeasement was sought, and questions lingered unspoken. Both fear of the unknown and hope for divine intervention coalesced in these spaces of worship, forcing believers to grapple with the contradictions of faith in an unyielding world. The structures that upheld spiritual inquiry sat heavy under the weight of inquiry, mirroring the convictions of those who sought meaning and solace. Adding to the blend, superstition's embrace tightened around communities as both a balm and a burden. The inexplicable became rationalized through tales spun in whispered circles where rituals of old took on weighty significance. Demons prowled in shadowy alleys. Celestial dances foretold dire outcomes few dared to contest. Throughout lands, sacrifices became both performance and plea, as people sought desperately for answers beyond mundane reason and explanation. The reign of superstition. Amid such fervency, rationality seemed to retreat, sidelined by the urgent need to interpret omens, symbols, and mysterious whispers. The cascade of events held political ramifications, rippling through the structures of authority and hierarchy in unprecedented ways. Great empires such as Justinian's Byzantine and the dynasties of China watched ambition collapse under nature's weight. Fractures appeared in once firm alliances. Local power dynamics shifted, marked by a jittering grasp of stability as rulers recalibrated, distanced by necessity rather than desire. In the end, those shadows loomed large. They paved paths of unexpected change. Those who persevered wove knowledge with new strategies, ensuring survival through adaptability and innovation. Among the ruins sprang new societies, revitalized trade routes, and traditions informed by shared tribulation. Guardians of wisdom, especially monasteries, shepherded insights into brighter tomorrows, political shifts in the path forward. So from the brink of collapse rose a world reimagined as humanity, muscling past despair, etched resilience in history, solidifying it into a testament of enduring spirit, an unwritten will to survive that continues to forge its narrative even now. Like and subscribe to embark further into history's untold voyages.